Hey mathematics learners, welcome to Distance Learning with Lee, where I make learning mathematics super easy. So in this video tutorial, we're going to be going through the grade 12 mathematical literacy paper 1 that was written in November 2023. And I feel like, now that we've basically went through, important concepts, right, we can basically look at this paper. Right, so please make sure that you've watched all my video tutorials on calculating interest, tariff systems, income tax, financial document analysis, data handling. Okay, please make sure that you watch all those lessons before you have a look at this paper, right? So obviously then when you've basically get into your exam, guys, it's very important that you just read the instructions. Okay, read the instructions so that you basically understand what you're supposed to do as you're going through this past paper. Okay, so they're obviously telling us that this question paper has 5 questions. Okay, and you need to use all the annexures in the addendum to answer the following questions. We need to use annexure A for question 2.1, annexure B for question 2.2, and annexure C for question 4.2, right? You need to answer all the questions correctly according to the numbering system used in this paper. You need to start each question in a new page, very important. You may use an approved calculator. You need to show all calculations clearly. Please show all your calculations, show all the bits and pieces, round off all final answers appropriately according to the given context, right? So depending on how they tell you that you're supposed to round off, you need to round off in that way. Some questions they'll just say, leave your answer in 2 decimal places, leave your answer in the nearest whole number. It just depends on that. If they don't tell you how you're supposed to round off, then you can make that decision on your own. Just round off your final answers to 2 decimal places. Indicates all the units of measurements. Diagrams are not necessarily drawn to scale. And then write neatly and legibly, right? You need to write neatly so that the person that's marking your paper knows what is able to read what you wrote. Question 1. Okay, so we're gonna be going through this question, and with question 1, guys, it's basically us, analyzing this data that's given to us here. And also what's important when it comes to question 1.1 is that we just need to be able to work with our ratios. We need to give our ratio in unit form. So remember, I've been mentioning this. There's a difference between simplified form, unit form. When it comes to answering these past papers, you need to know the difference. When they talk about simplified form, they're just saying that your final answer needs to be as whole numbers. But if they're saying in unit form, then you can write it as a fraction. You can write your answer as 1:2, a number that is a fraction or a decimal fraction. Okay, that's what we need to basically take note of there. And in this question, we just need to know what's the difference between continuous data and discrete data. So we know that when we're talking about discrete data, we're talking about data that is represented by counting numbers, whole numbers. But when we're talking about continuous data, we're talking about data that can be represented by measured values. So like numbers like 1.5, 3000 and 2.50, something like that. Okay, we've got like a decimal. That's your continuous data. Okay, let's have a look. Question 1.1 says Spotify is a legal way to listen to music using the internet. It is also referred to as a streaming music online. Okay, it's also referred to as streaming music online. Table 1 below shows different categories of users and items streamed for 3 different categories. Category A, Category B, and Category C on the 18th of February 2023 using the Spotify mobile app. Okay, and we're given these different categories: free users, paid users, number of songs, number of music artists, music albums. Then we're given the sessions here. It's A, B, and C, right? Then we note app just means application. Question 1 says use table 1 above to answer the questions that follow. So for question 1.1.1, state whether the values that are used for these different categories in the table, are they discrete data or are they continuous data? So when you basically look at all these values that are given to us in all these different categories, these numbers, do these numbers represent discrete data, or do these numbers represent continuous data? So because we can see that this is counting numbers, we don't see a value here that's point something, okay? So we can just say that it is discrete data. Question 1.1.1. The number of music albums streamed during session B, okay? Number of music albums streamed during session B, there was 12,929,993. Okay, right? So we want to now write down this number in words without using numerals. So they just want us to write what I've just said in words. 12,929,939. Okay. Question number 1.1.3. Identify the session during which the second largest number of music artists were listened to, right? Also another tip when obviously dealing with, paper one, where you're analyzing the data that's given to you, just highlight the keywords there, okay? Because the keywords that are given in that sentence will basically help you on what you need to focus on when it comes to answering the question. So in this case, we are focusing on the number of music artists. So where are the number of music artists? Basically tells us that we want to focus on number of music artists, right? That's what we're focusing on there, right? So we want to identify the session during which the second largest number of music artists were listened to. So what is the second largest number of music artists, right? So basically here, you basically need to now, in your head, arrange this data from the largest to the smallest, right? So in this case, the largest value here is so it's 6089733, 6089852. So the largest one is this one. So this is the largest one, okay? Meaning that the second largest one is this one, okay? So the session during which the second largest number of music artists were listened to. What is that session? That session is B. Don't give the number. They ask the session. Okay, so that session there is just B. So this is actually question 1.1.2. Okay, this is question 1.1.3. Okay, we said the session is B, right? Now let's have a look at the next one. Question 1.1.4. Calculate the increase in the number. So what is the increase in the number of songs streamed over the 3 sessions? Okay, so here we're going to be focusing on which category, number of songs. What is the increase that we are seeing in the number of songs streamed over the 3 categories? So we see that in session 1, they streamed the music for 88,704,344 times. Then in session B, they streamed it for 88,705,985. Then in this session, they streamed the music for 888,706,141. So for us to determine the increase, we'll just take the bigger value minus the smaller value to then determine what was the increase in the number of songs streamed. Okay, so it's just the bigger value minus the smaller value of 887,04344 to get what? The increase. Okay, so you'll see that the increase is actually equal to 1797. So that's the increase in the number of songs streamed over the 3 sessions. Question 1.1.5 says determine as a unit ratio. Okay, so there it is there. If they want us to determine as a unit ratio, okay, in the form of 1 is to something, the number of paid users to the number of free users during session A. That means that we're going to be focusing on session A. Okay, we're going to be focusing on session A, the free users and the paid users. Okay, so the free users is that, the paid users is that. The question basically tells us how we need to set up our ratio. Okay, we're going to set it up exactly how they've told us. Okay, so for question 1.1.5, so the ratio of the paid users to means colon free users. Okay, so what's the paid users? The paid users, if you go up there, it's 690 160 the free users, it's 8120 031. Okay, so the ratio of the paid, starting with that value there, to the free. Okay, then they said that it must be in the form of 1 is to something. So how can we get it in the form of 1 is to something? We want to divide by that 690,160. 690,160. To get this part here to be 1, what you do on the left hand side, you need to do on the right hand side. So it's going to be this divided by this is 1 is 2. Then if you take 8120031 divided by 690,160, you'll get 11.77. Okay, and because they said that they want your ratio in unit form, you can just leave it like this. Okay, so our ratio is 1 is to 11.77. All right, and we are basically done with question 1.1. Question 1.2, right? So what's basically happening in question 1.2, right? It basically says that a recent article stated that a music artist gets less than 10% from the sale of a music CD in South Africa. The pie chart below shows how the money in rand for one music CD is distributed. Okay, so here, right, this pie chart that is indicated to us here shows how the money in rands for one CD or for one music CD is distributed. Okay, so this is just the distribution of money in rands from the sale of one music CD. Okay, then that's your A, B, C, D, F, and G. Okay, then we are told what all of these letters mean. A, it's the record label's net profit. So the net profit that the record label makes is 18 Rand 0.05. B, it's received by the music store. So the music store gets 41 Rand 0.84. C is the tax, it's 12 Rand 16. D is the amount the artist receives per music. The artist receives 8 Rand and 33 cents. E is received by the writer of one song. So the writer of the song gets 0.11 cents. F is the distribution cost, it's 6 Rand 98. G is the press cost of music CD at a record label, it's 11 Rand 53. Okay, then they told us that CD basically means the compact disc to store and play digital audio recordings. Okay, so this is basically showing us how the costs or the money for one CD is distributed to all these different places. All right, so it says use the pie chart above to answer the questions that follow. So question 1.1, right? Give the acronym for value added tax. So what does value added tax or VAT mean? Okay, so I already said this, gave the answer there. So the acronym VAT basically means value added. What is then the total price for one music CD. Remember here they give us all the how the costs are broken down for one music CD. So remember now, if they're asking us for the total price, that means that we want to add up all of these costs together to basically determine the total price. So for question 1.2.2, what we're going to do, we're going to add up all these prices. So the total price for the CD is going to be equal to 18.05 plus 41 rand point 84 plus 12 rand 0.16 plus 8 rand plus 0.11 plus 6 rand 0.98 plus 11 rand 0.53. Okay, I think I got everything there, and we're gonna punch this into your calculators. So if you punch this into your calculator, you'll get that the total price is just 99 rand. Good. Question 1.2.3 says calculate the amount that the music artist receives for one music CD as a percentage of the amount received by the music stores. Right? All the time I've mentioned this also with the percentage calculations. It tells you exactly what you need to do. It tells you what you need to put in the numerator. It tells you what you need to put in the denominator. And obviously, if you're calculating the percentage, you want to obviously multiply that by 100. Okay, so what do we need to do? They give us that. What is the part? What is the whole? What is the part numerator? What is the whole denominator? Okay, so calculate the amount that the music artist receives, how much the music artist receives for one CD as a percentage of the amount received by the music store. So what's in the numerator? How much the music artist receives. Okay, so how much does the music artist receive? It's D. Okay, so we're going to take that D amount of 8.33. So the percentage is 8.33. How much the music artist receives divided by the amount received by the music store. What is the amount received by the music store? The amount received by the music store is B, 41.84. Want the percentage, so we're going to multiply by 100. So all that we need to do is 8.33 divided by 41.84 multiplied by 100. How much do we get? You get 19. It's actually not 19 rand because the rands cancel. It's just going to be 19.91%. So that's basically amount that the music artist receives for one music CD as a percentage of the amount received by the music store. Okay, it's just going to be that 19.91%. Okay, right. Cool stuff. Question 1.2.4. Determine the amount of money a music artist will make if he sells 210,000 copies. So if a music artist sells 210,000 copies, how much will he make for that? Okay, remember, if they've basically told us that for one CD, okay, they've told us that for one CD, the artist makes 8 rand. An artist makes 8 rand 33. Okay, that's how much he makes from just the sale of one CD. So if they then sell 210,000 CDs or copies, what must we do? We are just going to multiply that by 8 rand 0.33. Okay, to determine how much you will actually make. Okay, so if we take 210,000 multiplied by 8.33, how much do you get? You'll see that the music artist will actually make 1,749,300. That is how much he'll actually make from just the sale of 210,000 CDs. All right, just doing this so I can take note of what I've already done. Question 1.2.5, calculate how many music CDs must be sold For a writer who writes one song, to receive 16 rand 50, right? So here we are focusing, we want to determine how many CDs must be sold, okay? For a writer who writes one song to receive 16 rand and 50 cents. Okay, remember here we basically saw that, okay, if one CD is sold, if one CD is sold, the writer just makes, so for question 1.2.5, if one CD is sold, right, the writer just makes 0.11 cents, right? So now we want to determine how many CDs must be sold for him to make 16 rand 50. Okay, so we can just say we're trying to determine here, we can write there as an X there, trying to determine how many CDs must be sold. You can put that as an X at the bottom, okay, for the writer to make 16 rand and 50 cents. We can just put that we're trying to determine the CDs that must be sold, and obviously for the writer to make 16 rand 50. So here we can just cross multiply. Okay, so we can just take that 16 rand 50 multiplied by 1. It's just going to be 16 rand 50, which is equal to cross multiply x multiplied by 0.11. Okay, then from there we're just trying to solve for x, so we're going to divide by 0.11 divide by 0 rand 11 cents. Then you'll see that how many CDs must be sold. Okay, so from there, if you take 16,50 divided by 0.11, you'll get that, okay, 150 CDs must be sold. Okay, or if you also want to look at it this way, right? How many CDs? So you can just say how many X CDs multiplied by, remember, he makes 0.11 from, the sale of this sale of one CD so how many CDs must be sold, okay, for us to get 16 rand 50, or for the writer to get 15 rand 50, not us. Okay, so from there all that we need to do, again, just divide by 0.11, divide by 0.11, and then you'll still get 150 CDs. Okay, how many CDs? Okay, that's X multiplied by how much he makes from the sale of one CD is equal to, for us to get 16 rand 50. So you can just look at it like that, where you're just writing the unknown X under what we're trying to look for, or you can do it like that. Okay, just depends on how your brain works. Okay, so we're done with question 1.2.5. We found that it's supposed to be 150 CDs. Let's have a look at the next question. Question 1.3. It says many music artists use their own vehicles to travel to and perform at music concerts. Okay, they're also advised to spend 25% or less of the gross monthly income on monthly repayments for a vehicle, right? Table 2 shows the price of a vehicle and the monthly repayments and the gross monthly income required to qualify for vehicle financing. Okay, so table 2 shows the price of a vehicle, the monthly repayments, and the gross monthly income required. So we're given the different prices of the vehicles here, right? And then, for example, if you want a vehicle that is priced at 150,000, that basically means that your monthly repayments will be 3,207.82, and that basically means that for you to be able to afford this vehicle, to qualify to get financing for this vehicle, you need to basically earn a gross monthly income of 12,000. So here, what's very important also when it comes to finance, we need to be able to understand the difference between gross monthly income or gross salary and net salary. So when we're talking about a gross salary, we are basically saying that the salary that you get before any deductions are made, before they deduct tax, before they deduct pension, before they deduct UIF, that is your gross salary. But when we're talking about your net salary, we're talking about what is left after, deductions are made, after they've deducted income tax, after they've deducted UIF, pension fund contributions, medical aid, and things like that. Net means after deductions. Gross means before deductions. Okay, so we've basically defined there what is meant by that, right? So it says use table 2 above to answer the questions that follow. Define the term gross monthly income. Gross monthly income is the income that you get before any deductions are made. Okay, so gross income is income that you receive before deductions. Question 1.3.2, complete the following statement. An artist with a gross average monthly income of 83,409 qualifies for a vehicle priced at. All that we need to do, we want to go to the table, we want to find where there is a gross monthly income of 83,409 and see what is the price of the vehicle that person qualifies for. Okay, so then we can see that if you're earning that income, you qualify for a vehicle priced at 1 million. Okay, done. Question 1.3.3, round off the monthly repayment of a vehicle costing 2 million to the nearest thousand. So here we have to round off, right? And rounding off is very important. Okay, when you're rounding off, I did mention that if obviously you're given certain values, let's say for example, I'll give you I'm gonna just give you guys 2 examples that you can just look at to just test to see if you know what you're supposed to do. Let's say I give you 4,324. That's A. B, and then I give you 25,677, and then here I say round off to the nearest 100, and then here I'm saying round off to the nearest 1,000. Okay, just I'm giving you some additional questions to look at there. So what do we need to do in these situations, right? In this situation, if you want to round off to the nearest 100, I always just say this to my learner: just go to where the question is asking you to go. Nearest 100. So where do you go? Go to the number that is in the place value of the 100. It's there. Okay, so that means that we want to determine if we need to change that 3 or not, right? So what's going to help us determine whether we need to change that 3 or not? It's the value that comes before it. If the value that comes before this 3 is a number that is 5 or more than 5, it basically means that that 3 needs to become a 4. If that value that comes before the 3 is less than 5, it basically means that we do not change the 3, it stays the way that it is. So in this case, because the value that comes before the 3 is a 2, and 2 is less than 5, it basically means that if we want to round off this number to the nearest 100, what is going to be our answer? It's going to be 4. The 3 is going to stay as a 3, and all the other numbers that follow just becomes a 0 and a 0. We've rounded off to the nearest 100. Let's look at this question. Round off to the nearest 1,000. By mind, the question tells us to go to the nearest 1,000. Just go there. Nearest 1,000. Go to the number that represents the thousands. It's the 5. It's in the place value of the thousands. Then, obviously we want to change that 5. We want to determine if we want to change the 5 or not. What's going to help us determine whether the 5 should be a 6 or if it should stay as a 5? It's the number that comes before the 5. Because the number that comes before the 5 is a number that is greater than 5, it basically means that I need to make that 5 a 6. It will be 2, 6, and all the other numbers that follow the 5 just become a 0, 0, 0. This is how we round off to the nearest hundreds, thousands, tens, and thousands, 100,000. Okay, if you have that at the back of your head, you can answer any question. So now let's round off then. Okay, using what I've just explained here, let's apply that in question 1.3.3. How will we round off, the monthly repayment of a vehicle costing 2 million to the nearest thousand? So we're going to go to a vehicle that costs 2 million. So we can see that a vehicle that costs 2 million, that is where we are. We want to basically round off this monthly repayment value. Okay, so I'm gonna write it down the way that it is. Okay, so this is question 1.3.3. Okay, that value as it is for the vehicle that is priced at 2 million is just 41,610, 78. Now they are telling us that we want to round it off to the nearest thousand, meaning that we are going to focus on the number that's in the place value of the thousands. What is that number? It's that 1. It means that we want to determine whether we want to determine if we want to change that 1 or not. What's going to help us determine whether that 1 needs to change is the number that comes before the 1. That number is a 6. 6 is a number that is greater than 5. So it basically means that we're going to change that 1 to be what? 2. And every other value that comes after just becomes a 0. So it's going to be 0, 0, 0. 0, 0, 0, and you can even say comma 0, 0. Okay, every number that comes after needs to become a 0. Okay, are you guys following? I hope you are. Let's go to the next question. Question 2, right? So in question 2.1, we are going to be analyzing, a bank statement. So I'm sure you guys know when it comes to paper 1, they like putting one financial document. Most of the time it's a bank statement. So you need to be sure that you know how to analyze a bank statement. And what I always advise my learners to do is that just before you even look at the questions, check to see if you can figure out what's happening in that bank statement. Okay, so it tells us that David is a 68-year-old man who works at a grocery store in Swellendam. An extra A shows an extract of David's bank statement for the period of the 1st of November 2022 to the 1st of December 2022. Some amounts have been omitted. So now we need to use an extra A to answer the questions that follow. So before we even get, busy, we need to first analyze this bank statement. We need to first, be comfortable with what's happening in this bank statement. So I'm going to analyze this bank statement with you guys, and then we're going to have a look at the questions. So we can see this is an extract of David's bank statement for the period of 1st of November 2022 to 1st of December 2022. We are given that, this is basically the name of the account. It's an elite check account. We are given, David's account number. That is his account number. The amount that he has in his account on the balance brought forward in his account is 2,169.55. Then we can see that now here we've got debits and we've got credits. When there's a debit in your account, it means that money is coming out of your account. If there's a credit, it means that money is coming into your account. So we can see here that in his account, there's a lot of debits, happening. A lot of, amounts that are being deducted from his account. Right? There's that service fee that's being deducted, overdraft fees, excess interest. Then there's a salary that is being added, or that is added to his account. We don't know what it is. Okay, so we need to figure out how we can get how much of his salary is added there. Then we've got that also deducted from his account. And I think you guys basically get the point there, right? So how can we basically determine what is actually happening in this bank statement? Remember, we're going to take, this is the amount that is in his account, and then this is an amount that comes out of his account, and then when this amount comes out, this is how much he has left. So check to see that. Okay, just check. Take 2169.55 minus, because it's a debit, minus 1.60. Check to see if you are in fact getting 2167.95, and we are. So that's the process right? We need to basically do that zigzag motion to determine, these balances there at the end, right? Even here, for us to determine this A, the salary that's actually added into his account, we just need to look at this, right? This was the amount that was in his account before the salary came in. Then plus the salary, then this is how much is in his account. Then that actually tells us that if you want to then determine how much salary was actually added, we're just going to take that 2,100,35. We're going to plus, because it's a credit, plus that A value, and this should give us 10,078,41. Okay, already now we've got a way, okay, that we can basically calculate that A. Okay, so basically give yourself time to look at the statement and understand what is actually going on there, right? Then we're also given that these are dates, okay? These are different dates in which, these transactions are occurring in his account. Then we are basically told that these fees include VAT at 14% until the 31st of March 2018. So it was like a VAT amount of 14% was charged until the 31st of March 2018. And then the VAT amount is 15% from the 1st of April 2018. Very important information. Then we're given a key there. This key there basically helps us, analyze the different dates that are given to us there. Okay, I think we're more than ready to have a look at the questions that are given to us, right? Question 2.1.1 says, write down the type of account, David has. So from us, analyzing David's bank statement, we did see that, this is actually what's an elite check account. Okay, so it's an elite check account. Question 2.1.2 says, determine the total amount paid for service fees. Okay, so the total amount that is paid for service fees, we just need to go to this his account, and we just need to look for, where we had a deduction that said service fees. So it's this one, R1.60. Okay, look for other service fees. Withdrawal service fee of 69 rand. That's the fixed monthly salary service fee of 110 rand. So these are all, the service fees that, happened in his account. So we're just going to take R1.60 plus 69 rand plus 110, and we are basically done. Okay, and then you'll see that gives us 180 rand, 180 comma 60. Okay, so that's the total amount that is deducted for service fees. Okay, question 2.1.3, David's net salary paid in his account is labeled A. He has 2 insurance policies. Okay, David stated that his total monthly payments for insurance is more than a quarter of his salary. Verify showing all calculations if his statement is correct. Okay, in this question, guys, right, David is basically making a statement, right? He is stating that his total monthly payments for insurance are more than a quarter of his salary. So before we can even verify that, we first need to determine what is a quarter of his salary, get that amount, then get the total monthly payments for insurance, okay, and then compare those two values. Okay, so what is a quarter of his net salary? So the first thing we need to do in this case, we need to first determine what is actually that net salary there, right? So remember here, I already gave us now, the equation, or how we can set up our equation to, calculate the net salary. So we are just going to use that, in our calculations there, okay? So we're trying to get the net salary, right? So I did mention to get the net salary, we are just going to take the 2,135. We are going to plus A, and this should give us 10,078,41. And all that we want to do here, we want to then solve for A. How do we solve for A? It's just going to be A is equal to, this value is going to jump the equal sign. So it's going to be 10,078,41 minus, when it jumps the equal sign, the sign changes, 2,100,35. And then what's our answer here? So it's going to be 10,078.41 minus 2,100.35. We will see that his net salary is actually equal to 7,978.06. So that is his net salary. Okay, the salary that reflects in your bank statement is your net salary, right? The salary after deductions. Okay, so this is basically, John's net salary, right? So now we can basically now go to the statement, right? We first want to determine what is a quarter. Okay, first want to determine what is a quarter of his salary. That's what we will first want to determine. Then we want to determine the total that he pays for insurance. Then we want to now compare these two values and then verify whether his statement is correct or not. What is a quarter of, multiply his salary, 7,978,06. We are going to get that 1/4 multiply 7978.06. You'll get 1,994.52. That is a quarter of his salary. Okay, then we need to calculate what is the total that he pays for insurance. So we're just going to go there and calculate what are the amounts that he pays for insurance. So for insurance, it's this one. Then that's the insurance again. Is there another insurance? Just those two. So it's 940.39 plus 940. So how much he pays for insurance is equal to 940.39 plus 940.39, which is equal to 1,880.78. Okay, so now we can now look at his statement, right? We can look at his statement, a statement that he was making. What did he claim? He claims that, that his total monthly payments for insurance is more. Is the monthly payments for insurance more? Is the monthly payments for insurance more? That's the monthly payments for insurance. Is it more than a quarter of his salary? No. Okay. No, it's not. Okay. We find that the total that he pays for insurance of 1,880.78 is less than, hence the mouth is closed there, less than 1,994.52. It is less than. So we can basically confirm that his statement is invalid. Okay. Done. Question 2.1.4. The fixed monthly service fee of 110 Rand on the 30th of November 2022 includes VAT, of 15%. And they're telling us that the same service fee, excluding VAT, was charged on the 30th of November 2017. Now, they want you to determine the service fee amount without VAT that would have been paid in 2017. Okay, so here we need to just be careful at the fact that we were told that the prices for VAT before the 31st of March 2018 is 4K. So in this case, what we need to do now, we first need to determine what is the service fee excluding VAT. Once we have what the service fee is excluding VAT, that is just going to be the same service fee that is charged in 2017. Then we will just take that amount and then we want to include VAT. Okay, so we just need to basically do that procedure there. So in question 2.1.4, we are obviously doing some VAT calculations in this question. We want to determine what is the service fee? Okay, so they give us 110 rand. And we are told that this includes VAT. Okay, so for us to determine an amount including VAT, remember, can I just use my table that I always use? Just doing this again for our new members that are joining the party. So amounts excluding VAT, it's clean. We haven't added anything to that amount. It's 100%. Then we've got the VAT amount. Okay, the VAT amount in this case, because this is for 30th of November 2022, is 15%. Then the amount including VAT, we want to now include this VAT, so it's going to be 115%. So here they told us this 110 rand is an amount that includes VAT, but we want to find out what is the amount that excludes VAT. So you just always multiply by what you want. You want to get the amount excluding VAT. Okay, so you multiply by 100% because 100% represents the amount excluding VAT, divided by what we have. What does this amount here represent? It is the amount including VAT, so we're going to divide it by 115. So therefore, that basically means that it's going to be 110 multiplied by 100 divided by 115. So the service fee amount, excluding that, is just 95,000,65. I'm just going to leave it into decimal places. So they've basically said that this is the same amount. This is the same service fee even in 2017. So even in 2017, the service fee is that 95,000. 95 rand 0.65. So all that we want to do now, we want to determine what is this service fee including the VAT that is charged in 2017. So in 2017, they're charging a VAT of 14%. So that's all that we want to include then there. Okay, so the only thing that changes now in this scenario is just that when to get the amount including VAT for the 2017, we are just going to take that 0.65 multiplied by what we want. So it's still going to be the same table. It's just that the only thing that will change here, right, will just be the VAT amount. It will just be 14 there, and then here it will be 114. So that's all that's going to basically change there. It's going to be 14 there, and there it's 140. So remember, here we want the amount including VAT for 2017. So amount including, we're going to multiply by 114 divided by, because that's what we want, amount including divided by what we have is the amount excluding, which is 100, and then what do we get? It's 95.65 times it by 114 divided by 100. Then you get that it's 109.04. Okay? That is the amount including VAT in 2017 for the service fees. All right, and we're basically done with question 2.1.4. Okay, question 2.2. Right, so here we are told that David's average monthly taxable income, right? So here we're dealing with income tax, and they're telling us that his monthly taxable income is 8,978 rand. Okay, that's his monthly income that can be taxed, right? And then they're telling us that this includes monthly interest earned on his investments, right? They're told that he does not earn any bonuses, nor is he a member of medical aid, right? So we basically told that he's not a member of medical aid, so we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to minus his medical credits, right? Okay, and then we are told that table 3 on an extra B shows the income tax table for the 2022 to 2023 tax year and the tax rebates over a 3-year period. Now, question 2.2.1. Identify which income tax bracket will be used to calculate David's annual tax, right? So the first thing that we need to do in this question, right, is we first need to calculate how much does David get paid per annum. Okay? So for question 2.1, we want to determine how much he gets paid per annum. So for us to determine how much he gets paid per annum, Okay, take 2.2.1. We are just going to take to get his annual taxable income. We are going to take his monthly taxable income of 8,978 multiplied by 12. So if you multiply it by 12, how much do you get? 8,978 multiplied by 12. You will get 107,736. So that is David's annual taxable income. Okay, the income that can taxed, right? So what does this mean? Okay, we want to basically now determine in which tax bracket does his income fall in, right? So from here we can see that his income basically falls in the first tax bracket, because that amount that he earns of 107,736 is in tax bracket number A. Okay, so from there we can basically say that it's tax bracket A. It's tax bracket A in this case. Sometimes they number the tax brackets as 1, 2, 3. So please just take note of the numbering that is used there. Right, then now let's have a look at the next question, right? In the next question, right, we're given something that's very interesting here, right? They told us that David claims that he should not be paying any income tax. Verify showing all calculations whether his claim is valid. He's saying that he's not supposed to be paying tax. So now we want to verify if his claim is correct. But now how do we verify whether his claim is correct if we're not given a tax threshold table? I'm sure you can see that here we're not given any tax threshold table. So what do we need to do in this situation? We now need to be able to calculate the tax threshold. Okay, we need to be able to calculate tax threshold. So how do we calculate tax threshold, right? So you just need to now remember this formula off by heart. This is also what I was basically saying to my learners, that you need to just know this formula, because honestly speaking, this formula is not even in the study guide that I used to help my learners out. Okay, so you need to basically now take note of this formula. How do we calculate rebates tax threshold? We use this formula. It says that rebates is equal to tax threshold multiplied by the lower level tax rate. Okay, so what is meant by this? If you basically have a look at your rates of tax, okay, we see that here the rates of tax, this is the lower level rate of tax, that 18% there, right? So we can basically write this as rebates is equal to the tax threshold multiplied by the lower level tax rate is 18%. The rate there in that lower level is 18%. Okay, this is the formula that we're supposed to use. You can also just write it as percent, can also be written as 0. So we're going to use this formula to help us determine, right, what is, the tax threshold. And once we are able to determine the tax threshold, we will be then, able to check whether he's supposed to pay tax or not, because we know that the tax threshold is the amount that we use to determine whether a person is supposed to pay tax or not, right? If a person earns an amount or a salary or a taxable income that is below the tax threshold, then we know that that person is not supposed to pay tax. But if they earn an amount that is above the tax threshold, then we know that that person is supposed to pay tax. So that's what we're trying to get to, right? That is basically what we're trying to get to. So let's see. Now, obviously, we are looking for the tax threshold. The tax threshold is our unknown, okay? We want to leave it the way that it is. Now, we need to determine the rebates that David qualifies for. So what are the rebates that David qualifies for? And remember, David is if we have a look at the information that was given to us there at the top, he's a 68-year-old man. Okay, so if he's a 68-year-old man, that basically tells us that he qualifies for how many rebates? We already know that he qualifies for 2. He qualifies to get the primary rebate and he also qualifies to get the secondary rebates. He qualifies to get 2 rebates. So we're going to write those rebates down, okay? So we're going to write those rebates down. So for the total rebates that he qualifies for, I did mention it's just the primary and secondary. I'm going to just add them as one here. So it's going to be that 16,425 plus that 9,000. Okay, and this is equal to the tax threshold, which is what we're trying to calculate, multiplied by 0.18. Then if you punch that 16,425 plus 9,000, how much do you get? You actually get 25,425, which is equal to the tax threshold amount, or checked threshold, multiplied by 0.18. So here, remember, we are trying to solve for the tax threshold. We're trying to determine how much is the tax threshold. So we're trying to isolate the tax threshold. So I'm going to divide both sides by 0.18, divide both sides by 0.18. So if you divide by 0.18, that means that the tax threshold amount for individuals that are above 65 is says to 25,425 divided by 0.18. You will get that it's equal to 141,250. Right, so that is the tax threshold, right? That is what we now can use to help us determine whether David is supposed to pay tax or not. So remember, we found that, okay, David's annual taxable income, so his annual taxable income is equal to 107,736. The tax threshold amount is 141,250. So what can we conclude? Is he supposed to pay tax or not? So because we can see that his salary is less than the tax threshold amount, we can conclude that his statement is valid. He's actually not supposed to pay tax. Okay, so we can see that, therefore, okay, his annual taxable income of 107,736 is below the tax threshold amount of 141,250. He is not supposed to pay tax. Very, very interesting question there. Okay, that just requires us to know how we're supposed to work with this formula to calculate what? The tax threshold, right? So I hope then they were super focused and you basically took note of what we did there. And that is basically that with question 2.2. Right, so let's have a look at question 2.3. So question 2.3 is income and expenditure. So question 2.3 is income and expenditure. Right, we're going to be analyzing the table here and we are going to be answering questions based on this table. It says table 4 shows the financial overview of Swellendam Municipality in 000. What does that mean? It basically means that whatever value is given to us in this table, you still need to add zeros, 3 zeros to those values. Okay, so it tells us that in some cases we're basically dealing with billions of rands there. Okay, so you just need to take note of that. Okay, including the income and expenditure, the original budgeted amount, the adjusted budgeted amount, and the actual amount. Due to over or underspending, this original budgeted amount is reviewed during the year and adjusted accordingly. So table 4 is the financial overview of Swellendam Municipality. Right here we are basically given the income, right? So we can see here that's the income. Here we've got the expenditures, right? And then here we've got the net surplus or deficit. Right, so what is meant by this? The income, the amount that is received expenditure, how much the amount is used, or the amounts where the expenses. Then the net surplus or deficit. When we're talking about a surplus of something, we are talking about you have more of something, right? You've got more of something, more of money. Okay. Or when you're talking about a deficit, that means that there's a shortage of this amount. Okay, so obviously when you're looking at the deficit, there's obviously going to be a negative amount there, okay, meaning that we are short of this amount. When you're talking about net something, we are saying that we took the income, we minus the expenditure, we are deducting to get the net. So when you're talking about net, okay, to get the surplus, we basically have to take either income minus expenditure to get the net surplus or the deficit. Okay, that's basically what's happening here. Also, I always just advise my learners that when you're analyzing such things, no one has knows or as a formula on how to deal with all of these different tables that we are basically going to be analyzing. But I do suggest that, just have a look, give yourself some time to analyze how did they move from one value to another. Try to figure out what's happening there, because it will definitely help you in instances where you probably have to answer certain questions. So give yourself time to analyze these tables. Okay, that's just how it is. You need to get a feel of this on your own. Analyze these tables, what's happening there, right? So that means that here, if this is the total, that means that all of these values, they've added them up to get to that value. All of these values here must be added up to get to there. Already we can see that, oh, if they haven't given us this value here, that means that to get it, I'm just going to say 111,769 plus A plus this is equal to this, and I solve for A. Do you see? Okay, then here as well, all of these values added up give us this. Analyze these things for yourself. Okay, then let's try to see. So it's income, it's the expenditures, right? Then it's the net surplus. Remember, when you're talking about net, we are taking that they took something, they deducted something to get something, right? That's why even when we're talking about a net salary, we are just saying if it's a net salary, it's your salary after deductions. But if it's your gross salary, we haven't deducted anything. So when you're talking about net, it's an amount after subtracting something. All right. So then let's see. Right, you've got the total income. Just see there. If this is your total income, then these are the expenses. Then this is the net surplus or deficit. How are they getting these amounts? Try to see if you can find any correlation there. Okay, right? But obviously, income minus expenses will either give us a surplus or a deficit. Okay, right? So let's check. If we take 313,792 minus 322,891, we are getting that it's a negative 9099. If you take 340,688 minus 316,678, you are getting a positive 24,010. So this is a surplus. So we have a surplus of adjusted budgeted amounts. Then here, right here, we can't really figure out these out because there's a lot of unknowns there. But roughly, we now have an understanding of how we need to go about analyzing this table, right? That's all that's required. We just need to have that skill of just being able to look at a table, look for a pattern, and being able to use that pattern to help you answer questions. Okay, so this is basically that. Okay, income minus expenditure will give us either a net surplus, meaning a surplus where it's a positive, or a deficit where it's a negative, to indicate that there's a shortage there in that department. So let's have a look at question 2.3.1. It says identify the item that was over budgeted for by more than 40 million. So let's now look. right? Here we've got items, different items there. We've got the grant. The original budget amount for the grants ne, was 71,396,000. Remember, there's extra zeros there. Okay, that's the amount that was budgeted. But then they had to adjust the budgeted amount. Do you see that it increased? Okay, the adjusted amount, it increased. Then let's look at the, obviously the tax and levies. You can't really, look at that, it's not given. And then the other, right, we can see that the original amount was 61940, and then the adjusted amount, it decreases. So we can see there, even if you basically take that 769, you minus 396, you can see that, okay, the item that was over budgeted for more than 40 million is actually the grants. Because if you take those two values, this amount minus this amount, you actually get 40,373, remember, 000. So it's basically the grants. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Question 2.3.2. Determine adjusted budgeted amount for the taxes. Do you see there? Now we already know, because we've already analyzed this table. We know what we need to do to get that adjusted budgeted amount for the taxes. All that we need to do, we will take that 111,769 plus a plus 48,152, and this is going to give us how much? Obviously this is rands. This is going to give us 340,688. Remember the 000s, ne? Okay, and then all that we want to do here, we want to solve for a. All that we want to do, we want to solve for a. So we want to collect first all the like terms. This amount plus this amount, it's 111,769 plus 148,152. We are getting it's 259,921 plus the a is equal to 340,688. Then we want to isolate this, because that's what we're trying to solve for. So we want it to be on its own. So that means that this value must go onto the other side. So meaning that a is equal to 340,688 minus 259,921. Okay, so therefore 340,688 minus 259,921. So that basically means that the taxes and levies and tariffs, the adjusted amount is 80767. All right, and that is basically the value for a. All right, question 2.2.3. 2.3.3, give a reason why the amount 9099 is shown in brackets. So remember, I've already shown, because we've analyzed our table, we already know why this amount is shown in black brackets. It's shown in brackets because it's a deficit. Because when we took the income and you minus the expenses, what did we get? Or the expenditure, we took that 313,792 minus the expenditure of 322,891. We got what? We actually got a negative 9099. So that is why this value is in brackets, because it's a deficit. Okay, it's a deficit. Okay, so that is why it's put in brackets. If it was a positive, it would just mean there's a surplus. Okay, we've got more of. Okay, but if it's a negative, it means that we are short of, okay, that amount. Cool. Let's have a look at question 2.3.4. Show how the total net surplus or deficit amount for the original budgeted amount was calculated. Okay, so here, right, we actually basically did it there, but we're actually supposed to do it in question 2 question 2.3.4, they're just asking you to show how the deficit amount for the original budgeted amount was calculated. It was calculated by doing what? By just taking the income minus the expenditure to get that. Okay, so there you're just supposed to show what we did there. Okay, so therefore the net deficit, because it is a deficit, it's just equal to the income in this case minus the expenditure, okay, which is the income. It's the 313.792 minus 322.891, which is equal to negative 9099. Okay, so we've basically shown how they got that amount there. Okay, question 2.3.5. The actual total expenditure Y shows a net surplus. So Y shows a net surplus of 2.53% of the total income. Show by means of calculations that the table value of the actual amount for the total expenditure Z to the nearest whole number is this. So we want to first show that, okay, the Z is actually equal to 309,547. Okay, by doing what? By just basically determining what the surplus amount. Okay, and we're basically told that if the Y is basically equal to 2.53% of the total income, right? Again, the question is telling us exactly what we need to do. So in question 2. This is question 2.3.5. They're telling us that to get Y is equal to 2.53% of total income. Okay, so all that we need to do, we need to determine what is the total income. So you'll see that there, the total income is actually equal to the 317,582. So you're going to just take 2.53 over 100 multiplied by 317,582. So what do you get? You will get 8034,82. Okay, if you round it off to 2 decimal places. So that basically tells us that our Y amount here, right, that is actually that 8034.82. Now we want to show now that that Z amount there is actually 309,547. How can you do that? To get that, we just know that because this 8034.82 is a positive amount, it's a surplus, né? So then here we can just say that the net surplus is equal to income again minus expenditure. Then we're just going to substitute all our values. The net surplus is 8034,82 equal to, what is the income in this case? Our income was given as 317,582 minus, we are trying to determine the expenditure, né? That Z. So I'm gonna minus Z. Then now we're just trying to solve for Z. Okay, how do we solve for Z? So all that we can do, you can either move the Z to the left hand side to make it a positive, then move this value to the right hand side, or you can do it in this way. So we can first then move this value to the other side. What will it be? It will be that 8034,82 minus 317,582, which is equal to minus it. Okay, what do you get? So 8034,82 minus 317,582, you get negative 309,547,18 is equal to negative Z But remember, we are trying to isolate it, ne? So the Z needs to be a positive value. So we can just then divide by -1, divide by -1, so that we get rid of that negative. Then we see that our Z is actually equal to positive 309,547,18. So that is a value for our Z. Therefore, let's look at the initial statement that was told to us. We need to show by means of calculations that the table value of the actual amount for the total expenditure Z to the nearest whole number is that. You can see that it's actually that, but that's all that we need to do. We just want to round it off to the nearest whole number. So if they say you have to round it off to the nearest whole number, they're basically saying that your final answer must not have any decimals. So it's just going to be, because we've got comma 1 there, it's just going to be 309,547 is equal to Z. And that's our final answer there. Right, so I hope you guys enjoyed question 2.3, and that basically makes sense for us. So now for question 3.1, right, we are basically given, a bar graph, right? Your double bar graph here, right? You need to be able to work with different types of bar graphs, your stacked bar graphs, your double bar graphs, and things like that. But in this case, we are just given a double bar graph, right? And then they basically telling us that overnutrition occurs when there is an excessive intake of dietary energy, resulting in overweight or obese people, right? The double bar graph below shows a percentage just of children in two age groups who are overweight or obese in South Africa. So these bar graphs basically show, the percentages of children that are overweight or obese in South Africa. And then the following descriptors have been used: males, females, urban, and rural. So it's children in two age groups who are overweight or obese. So we can see here on the y-axis, got the percentage of children. On the x-axis, you've got the descriptors. Okay, use the graph above to answer the questions that follow. Question 3.1.1, it says identify the only descriptor where the age group 5 to 17 years old are fewer than the age group under 5 years old. So here you just need to see that, okay, this when you see like a bar graph that has been, decorated in this manner, it basically indicates, children that are of the age group of under 5 years old. But if you're given a bar graph that has been shaded in gray, that indicates the age group of children that are 5 to 17 years old. So what is the only descriptor where the age group of 5 to 7 are fewer than the age group of 5 years old? Okay, so we can see here, okay, we're just trying to find where is the gray parts less than the zebra parts, okay, because that's what the question is asking us there. Okay, identify the descriptor where the age group of 5 to 17 years old, the gray, are fewer than the age group of 5 years old. Okay, that's basically what's required from us there. So where is it fewer than? It's there. Where? Males. Because everywhere else, it's actually more than. It's males. Question 3.1.2. Determine the difference in percentages of the two age groups for the female descriptors. So we're going to look at the female descriptors and we want the difference in the percentages. So we're going to look at the female. That's the female. What's the difference in these two percentages? So it's going to be 21.5% minus 11.1%. Okay, so you'll see that the difference is it 21.5? Yes, 21.5, not 0.1. 21.5% minus 11.1%. Okay, let's just fix that. It's 10.4%. Okay, compare and comment on the urban and rural descriptors of the two age groups. So we want to look at, the urban and we want to look at the rural, and we want to basically comment on these two. What are we basically seeing? Okay, so here it's just based on your own analysis. What are you noticing? Okay, when it comes to, you know, what's happening here. So we can basically see that when you're looking at the zebra patterns, okay, we can say that, children that are of the age group of, 5 years old, in both the urban and the rural, right? The percentages of, the children that are 5 years old that are overweight and obese is almost the same, because then it's 13.2 here, but here's 13.5. So for the children that are, under 5 years old, it's almost the same. But what we are noticing is that now for, children that are of the age group of 5 years to 17 years old, in the urban areas, we've got a higher percentage of children that are overweight and obese in the urban areas as compared to in the rural areas. So they just want you to, basically state that. Okay, so we can see, right? I'm not going to write this down, guys, right? I've basically mentioned that. Okay, you just want to compare what you can see. What's the differences? What are the similarities that you can see when it comes to, these two, descriptors? We can see that with the children under 5 years old, the percentage of children that are, overweight and obese is almost the same. But when it comes to children that are between the age groups of 5 to 17, in the urban areas, we've got a high percentage of children that are obese compared to in the rural areas. So here, right, I've basically explained that part. Okay. Question 3.1.4. In a rural school, there are 795 learners in the age group 5 to 7 years old. Okay, calculate the number of learners who are not overweight or obese. So we're just making use of, the bar graph to help us determine this value. Remember, if we're just looking at the rural schools, right? This is the rural school, so we're going to just be focusing on, this, double bar graph here, right? So we're going to be focusing on that one there. But what are we going to be focusing on in particular? We're going to be focusing on the gray region, because the gray region tells us about, the students or learners that are 5 to 17 years old. So how can we calculate the number of learners that are not overweight or obese? Remember, 16.3% of the 795 learners are actually obese, right? So let's start there, because remember, these bar graphs are just indicating the learners that are obese, or the kids that are obese. Né? So it basically means that for question 3.1.4, right? Okay, the learners, okay, that are obese, okay, is just going to be, if they're telling us that the total of them is 795, then it's just going to be 16.3. So 16.3% of these 795 learners are obese. Okay, so 795 learners are obese. Okay, so we're gonna basically start off by figuring that out. So it's going to be 16.3 times 16.3 over 100. Okay, so just remember to 16.3 over 100 multiplied by 795. So it basically tells us that 129.585 learners are obese. So it's approximately 130, if you round it off to a whole number. 130 learners are actually obese. So what does this mean? For us to get the learners that are not, what do we need to do? We're just going to take that 795 minus the 130 learners that are obese. What do we get? We get that the learners that are not overweight or obese, it's just 665 learners. Okay, so that's basically how we need to go about approaching this one. First, because with the bar graph, it's telling us about the learners that are obese. Okay, the percentage is telling us about the learners that are obese. Okay, so we're gonna find out how many of these learners are obese. Then we subtract it from the total learners to determine the learners that are not obese. Right? Question 3.1.5. Okay, question 3.9.5, it says that determine the probability as a fraction of randomly selecting a female who is under 5 years old and not overweight or obese. Okay, so here we are calculating probability. I want you to determine the probability of selecting a female who is under 5 years old that is not overweight or obese. Okay, so we found that basically, if you look at this, bar graph, we found that this 11.1, right, shows the percentage of the females that are under 5 years old, right, that are overweight and obese. Okay, let's write it down. So we said that females under 5 that are overweight and obese, okay, is equal to 11.1%. Okay, now with this question, it's asking us to determine the probability of selecting a female who is under 5 years old and not overweight and obese. So here, guys, we're just supposed to use the complementary rule. Okay, here we are told that females that are under 5 years that are overweight is that amount. But remember, we are trying to determine the females that are underweight, females under 5 that are not overweight. That's what we're trying to determine. All the time when you're calculating probability, start off with the formula. Probability is equal to favorable outcomes divided by total outcomes. In this case, right, we want our favorable outcomes is basically choosing females who are under 5 and not overweight. So it's not given to us. Okay, it's not given because all that's given to us in this question is females under 5 that are overweight. So for us to be able to answer this probability question, we need to use the complementary rule. Okay, how so? For us to calculate probability, we can use this probability of something happening plus the probability of something not happening is equal to 1. Okay, what is meant by this? For in looking at this example, the probability that the females are overweight, so probability that the females under 5 are overweight plus the probability that the females under 5 are not overweight is equal to 1. So we are going to use what we already know, which is probability that the females under 5 are overweight, to help us determine the probability that the females under 5 are not overweight. Okay, so I'm just going to solve this equation for my unknown. This is what I'm trying to solve for. This probability that the females under 5 are not overweight. That's what I'm trying to solve for. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to leave that on the left hand side. So the probability that the females under 5 are not overweight is equal to, we've got a 1 on the right hand side, minus this value goes on the other side, probability that the females under 5 are overweight. That's it. Okay, so it's going to be 1 minus, what is the percentage or likelihood that the females under 5 are overweight? Just go to the value. It's 1.1%. Okay, so it's 1.1%. So 11.1% is equal to 11.1 divided by 100. It's just equal to 0.111. So our answer is going to be 1 minus 0.111. Answer is 0.889 And then they said determine the probability as a fraction. Okay, so as a fraction, okay, you can just press the SD button. Okay, you can just press the SD button. Okay, if you take 0.889 equals, it's just going to do that for you. It's going to be 889 over 1000 because they want it as a fraction. Okay, so very important here, right? Especially when you can't count, okay, you need to use the complementary rule. Probability of something happening plus probability of something not happening is equal to 1. And then from there, you just work with what you have to help you calculate what you want. Okay, let's have a look at the next question. Shown below is a growth chart. Okay, I remember some learners were asking, I wish you had done a growth chart. There it is. Okay, we've got a growth chart. Shown below is a growth chart for boys from birth to 24 months. Also shown on the chart is the head circumference for age and part of the weight for length percentiles. Okay, the measurement for a boy at 1, 9, 12, and 18 months have been plotted on the chart by a nurse at the clinic, right? So this is birth to 24 months. The boy's head circumference for age and weight for length percentiles. Okay, so we basically are told that the different measurements of this boy were taken, right? When this boy is 1 month there, this is 1 month, né? Okay, they plotted that. When this boy is 9 months, it's plotted. When this boy is 12 months, 18 months, they plotted all these, values for us there, right? Then we see that here we've got the head circumference on the, vertical. We've got the head circumference given in inches and also given in centimeters, right? And then here, obviously on the horizontal axis, we just have, the how old the boy is, right? Then you've got now these different curves here. We've got these different curves, and in these different curves, we've got all these different, percentiles, right? 99, 95, 90, 75, 50, 25, 100, 5, and 2. So these are all the different, percentiles that are plotted for us there, right? So now let's have a look at the questions. Use the growth chart above to answer the questions that follow. Question 3.2.1. Write down in inches the measurement of the boy at 9 months. So what is the measurement of the boy at 9 months? So all that we want to do, we want to determine what is the boy's measurements at 9 months. So all that we need to do, we need to go to 9 months. There it is. Do you see? Go from the 9 months, go to the point there, and then we need to read off, the head circumference on the y-axis. So we're gonna try to read that there. Okay. So that's that. So if you basically make this a bit bigger, we can see that if you have to then read off, this boy's head circumference at 9 months, we can see that it's like because this is 18, okay, this is 18, so we can maybe just say because it's 17 point, okay, because if this is 18, that means that the value before is 17.9, so we can just say that it is 17.9 inches. All right, so that's basically the boy's head circumference at 9 months. Okay, I'm just gonna write it here. It's 17.9 inches. Okay, even if you wrote 18 inches, that would also still be accepted. All right, let's go on to the next question. Identify the months in which the boy was below the 50th percentile, right? So remember, I did mention that here we're given all these different percentiles here. Do you see there? Given all these different percentiles, right? So we want to determine the month where the boy was below the 50th percentile. So this is the 50th percentile. I'm just going to highlight it there. That's the curve for, our 50th percentile. Okay. In which month? was the boy below the 50th percentile, right? So we basically want to find the points where we've got, points under this curve, right? So we can see that it's here and we can see that it's there. So how old was the boy in those two instances, right? We can see that in this instant, the boy there was 1 month, right? Do you see there? And then in this instant there, because it's below, ne? This dot is below, the boy was 18 months. So we can just say that when the boy was 1 month and 18 months old. Question 3.2.3. Another boy of the same age has a head circumference of 48 centimeters at 18 months. State whether this boy falls in a higher or lower percentile than the boy whose details have been plotted on the growth chart, right? So in this case, right, we know that this is the growth chart, for this one boy, okay? But now if they're telling us that now on this growth chart, we want to plot a head circumference of 48 centimeters at 18 months. Let's start there. Let's plot that 48 centimeters at 18 months. Okay, so if we had to plot 48 centimeters at 18 months, you'll see that, okay, here we are reading all the centimeter values. Here we are reading all the inches, right? So 48 centimeters is there, right? It's there, right? So that's 48 centimeters, and then connect that with 18 months. So you'll find that the intersection is there. So when you basically now, connect, or the point where these two lines intersect, it basically tells us that, okay, that's that boy's point. Okay, so now if we compare it with the other boy or the initial boy's measurement, what do we see? Okay, what do we see? We can actually see that, okay, this other boy, okay, falls in a higher percentile than the boy whose details have been plotted on the growth chart. Okay, all right, so I'm basically gonna stop it here for now, right? And in the next tutorials, we are just going to look at question 3.3, question 4.1, question 4.2, question 5.1, and question 5.2. So please make sure then that you watch those lessons for the remainder of this past paper.
That is it, guys, and I'll see you guys on my next upload, Distance Learning with Lee, where I make learning mathematics super easy. Bye, guys.